So that was the first major bailout we've done. And every single time there's been a crisis, there's been a bailout. Bitcoin knows this. We're so attuned to this that we know that if New York Community Bank is the harbinger for future bank failures, then we know the response is printed money.
역사적으로 매번 경제 위기가 닥칠 때마다 정부와 중앙은행의 구제 금융이 있었고 그런 머니 프린팅으로 인해서 비트코인이 수혜를 받을 수밖에 없을 것이라고 주장하고 있는 인물은 현재 크립토 시장에 가장 영향력 있는 인물 중 하나인 비트맥스 설립자 아서 헤이즈입니다. 헤이즈는 그 어떤 사람들보다도 전반적인 시장 흐름에 대한 인사이트의 적중률과 신뢰도가 높은 인물인 만큼 그가 생각하는 향후 통화 정책과 그로 인해 발생될 크립토 시장의 방향성에 대한 그의 디테일한 인사이트에 대해서 함께 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
So first of all, Arthur, I'm curious because it seems like you are living the dream a little bit, skiing in Japan. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule for this interview. For people like you and me, people that are in crypto, how are you expecting that to impact the crypto markets? How is the crypto market going to fare and play out over the next 12 to 18 months? What is your approach?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we know that they're going to print money to save the banking system. We just don't know when it's going to happen and then what the program is going to look like. They're not going to call it quantitative easing or not going to call this thing that they called it before because that's politically not suitable. They'll come up with a new alphabet letter name for it. And, you know, people like me and others will say, oh, actually, guess what, guys? Like, if you really look at it, how it works, it's printing money. And I think Bitcoin is very attuned to that. We saw the price go from like 48 to 38,000. I know I was calling for lower. Didn't happen. You know, we've broken above 50. So we're hovering around there right now. I think that after hundreds of years of central banks bailing out indebted financial institutions, and the first too big to fail bailout was the Bank of England in 1773 with the East India Company, when they were over indebted and everyone owned their stock and said, oh shit, we're going to go bankrupt. Please lend us money. And because all the bankers own the stock, they took the public money and gave it to the East India Company and bailed them out. So that was the first major bailout we've done. And every single time there's been a crisis, there's been a bailout. Bitcoin knows this. We're so attuned to this that we know that if New York Community Bank is the harbinger for future bank failures, then we know the response is printed money. So we're not going to fall on that news, which would be, you know, financial crisis. We love financial crisis because financial crisis means more fiat, more debasement, more inflation. And this is the whole point of crypto and DeFi, is to build a parallel financial system, which is not affected by that sort of debasement, and therefore prices actually go up. So the more stress that we see in the US financial system, the more that Bitcoin is going to preempt the move of money printing. And also, I think tech and AI stocks are in the same boat as well. Anything that doesn't need a bank loves financial crisis. Tech companies don't need banks. They have essentially infinite profit margins once they've created really good software. And they don't need to finance their CapEx through the banking system. They love printed money. Crypto is the antithesis to the TradFi system. When printed money happens and you debase, you know, the value of time and human labor, we rejoice and we say, great, fuck you, we're going to take Bitcoin to 1 million, right? So I think these are the two sectors that will, even if there is a financial crisis, will be very well owned and will probably preempt the eventual money printing response.
So it sounds like from speaking to you now that the next bull market could possibly come from the repercussions of what we see across America now. Is that the case? Or are you expecting the bull market to also come from other factors?
There's also the halvening, and, you know, people have a lot of theories about how that affects mining supply. But I think, and there's also sort of like, does crypto fit in with AI? I know I've been out there pushing that sort of narrative, like an AI needs to use decentralized money and decentralized compute power, decentralized storage solutions, if they're really to be a pure economic actor that sits outside of, you know, how we humans do things. So that's a potential vector as well. And then, yes, I think that we're going to print the most amount of money ever in human history in the next, you know, 2 to 4 years, because we have a lot of elections coming up. And, you know, how do you get reelected? You give people free shit that they don't pay for in an obvious fashion. They always pay for it. Inflation or taxes, choose one. And then we have a lot of wars. Wars are very inflationary. Everybody around the world is increasing their defense budget to, you know, throw bombs at each other. And, you know, then we have the money printing to pay for the war, right? So it's all building itself into a super cycle of technology and money printing that I think is going to make this particular crypto bull market the biggest one that we've seen in terms of gains of $1 trillion of market cap that is, all of a sudden going to be present in our little ecosystem.
We have to dive into the spot Bitcoin ETFs a little. First of all, how many times do you think you've said the word spot Bitcoin ETF so far this year? Because I know people have been quizzing you on it a lot.
It's great. I mean, I think it's a great thing that we've created this new financial system, and for 15 years, it was ignored. The Winklevi twins filed their first ETF application in 2013.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they got one in the end. 10 years later, Larry Fink files his in June of 2023. 6 months later, he gets an ETF, right? And so that tells you all you need to know about what this ETF is and who is behind it. Is it a crypto native thing to help, expand the financial freedom of the world? Absolutely not. Is it a way to sequester fiat dollars that want to earn a return in fiat using what they think is new technology? Absolutely. It's a trading product. It makes fees for BlackRock and Fidelity and all the other major asset managers who've scooped up. I mean, you probably know the numbers better than me, however many billions in AUM over the last 4 weeks or so.
Yeah.
So it's been the most successful ETF launch in capital markets history. That should also tell you, like, what is the problem that it's supposedly trying to solve, which is, a global race to how much money can we print. And it's not an American issue, it's not a China issue. It's everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. And this is just one way for the authorities to try to control where that fiat goes. Because if you actually buy real Bitcoin, then it's out of their purview. But if you buy a BlackRock or a China AMC ETF, perfectly within their view to see what's going on, who owns what, and make sure that when the time comes, that money is subject to taxation via inflation as well.
Is there a risk that we're killing Bitcoin with the surge of traffic for spot Bitcoin ETFs, institutional demand coming through? Is Bitcoin still the money of the people?
I think so. And again, I don't think the response, if you're afraid of BlackRock and some of these other managers, is to say we need to ban them from owning Bitcoin. That's not how Bitcoin works. It's a permissionless system. Anyone who wants to own it for any purpose is allowed to do so. If we want to maintain the progress of super hard crypto money, then we're going to have to become active. The best part about owning Bitcoin and why the community is so strong is because people care about it and they do things. Now, BlackRock is a apathetic money manager. They don't do anything. They collect assets and charge a fee and sit on them. They're passive. So they're not going to do good things and they're not going to do bad things. But they're not going to have Bitcoin move out of their custody. Unless, and maybe there's some bond or something they buy, I doubt it. But that Bitcoin is just going to sit there. So the more Bitcoin they accumulate, the more Bitcoin that's never going to move and never going to do anything. Obviously the large whales in Bitcoin, they're not spending money all the time. But if you take a look at what the investments of people like Roger Ver and the Winklevi and some of the other large Bitcoin holders were doing back 10 years ago, they were investing in companies, giving people Bitcoin to build services to create an ecosystem that made the Bitcoin that they still retain more valuable. Is BlackRock going to do that? Absolutely not. They're going to sit on the Bitcoin and charge a management fee. So it's the same problem with capital markets where passive index investing is killing price discovery, because you invest in a company, you invest in an index, and the index invests in the highest valued stock, whether or not that stock earns its rate of return. Similar things could happen with Bitcoin. It's up to us to actually do stuff with the network and things like ordinals, where people are, bringing JPEGs to Bitcoin. I think it's a great thing. I know some people think it's trash that's on the blockchain, but at least we're using it. If ordinals are the only thing that keeps people using Bitcoin and spending Bitcoin, that's the best thing, because now we have the miners have income in Bitcoin for people using the network that they're there to upkeep, versus BlackRock and other asset managers. All they want to do is sit on assets and charge a fee.
Yeah. Is there a size at which you're like, okay, if BlackRock's spot Bitcoin ETF gets this big, then there is a risk to the Bitcoin network? If it's too big, it could.
I haven't. I'm sure somebody could tease that out if there's a particular. So I have no idea.
Okay. So let's take a little look now. So I want to ask, in your experience, when it comes to the most kind of middle finger, fuck you to the TradFi system, what has that been in crypto's journey? Was it the inception of Bitcoin? Has it been something along the way? You've obviously had a lot of whys since you've been in crypto, and you are kind of a vigilante in the space. What has been the biggest kind of fuck you to the traditional system?
I would say all the dog money coins, the Doge coins, the Shiba Inu, dog with hat. Like literally, if you take the collective dog money ecosystem, it's probably market cap of, I don't know, close to $100 billion. Like these things are literally like so stupid and hilarious at the same time. And they're worth all this money and they trade, hundreds of millions of dollars a day of trading volume. It's BBC people who've taken their shitty fiat paper shit money and said, I'm going to buy this fucking dog picture on the internet. And this dog picture is going to be worth a lot of money. And some people have made generational wealth buying and holding fucking dog money. Like it's hilarious. I think that it just shows the worthlessness of this thing called fiat money and the extreme that what was a great invention at the time, probably back a few hundred years ago when governments started using paper money, has now become this perversion where everyone is just racing to print as much of it as possible and degrade the value of human labor in the countries in which it's printed.